Hi, my name is Thais Gibson, and I'm the owner and founder of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and this is a platform where we provide free personal development tips and tools for your subconscious mind. So today I want to talk a little bit about why we tend to struggle so much to feel good for prolonged periods of time. And I think one of the big underlying reasons here, though there are many, is that we're not properly processing our emotions. Okay, so we sort of have like this build up of little triggers and little events that happen throughout the day, and we're not like processing these different triggers that we're experiencing. And what we tend to do instead is we tend to distract ourselves or avoid or be overly aggressive towards approaching these issues, as opposed to actually just getting really clear and specific about what these issues are, how they're impacting us, and then working through them. So today what I want to do is give you some tips and tools to actually work through some of these core issues that you might be experiencing, or some little triggers you're picking up throughout the day. And put it into context to understand why this is so important and what the impact is of not really doing this effectively. So let's say, for example, just to really externalize this so you can see this, let's say that you have a really close friend or a partner or a family member, and they say, hey, I need you to come over. I'm having a really bad day, and can you just sit with me and listen to me for a little bit? And let's say you get there, you arrive, and when they're sitting there with you and they're trying to talk to you about their day and what happened, you're like, okay, hold on for a second. Before we proceed, in order for me to listen to you, I have to have like a few glasses of wine here. I gotta go pour myself a glass of wine because I just can't deal with you without my glass of wine. Or like, hey, can I just take breaks every few minutes in between you telling me the story and smoke because I'm a little overwhelmed? Or you know what? I'm gonna sit here, and while you're speaking about your feelings, I'm just gonna start like scrolling through social media and sort of half listen to you and half look at social media at the same time. What would this person feel? This person would feel rejected, like just not good, hurt, abandoned maybe emotionally. And the reason I tell this sort of story and paint this picture is this is what we tend to do with the relationship to our own emotions. This is what we tend to do with ourselves. We have a hard day and we're like, oh, a glass of wine after work, or like, you know, I feel bad and I just pick up my phone and distract myself and look through social media. And none of these are actually ways of processing emotions and making things better. It's just an attempt to like dissociate from the situation, or to avoid or repress and just get out of having to deal with anything. And what the byproduct of this is that we actually store all of these little experiences with all of the emotions intact. We store them all at a subconscious level, all these little memories of these triggers throughout the day, and they just build up and they create more and more emotional buildup, and then this emotional buildup has to come out in some sort of way eventually, whether it's through like really poor coping mechanisms, whether it's through different issues within the body, or whether it's through, you know, big emotional breakdowns later on. So it's really important that we're actually actively getting in touch with what we're feeling and what our experiences are, and sort of dumping this and working through it in a specific way. So there's a lot of really amazing ways that I'll disclose in future videos about how to just effectively process really deep emotions. But for the sake of this video and for what we can do on just a sort of day-to-day basis, I'm going to keep this as simple as possible. So here's a really easy few-step process that will just get everything processed and out of the way. So number one, let's say you have a really hard day, you come home from work, you have to dump everything. Sit down, write everything out that's bothering you, okay? Or let's say that you even have like a more traumatic situation or a more challenging situation. Let's say the situation is that you get fired from work. It's not the firing from work that's causing your problem. It's all of the little things that you make it mean that causes your suffering, okay? So it's not like, hey, I just got fired from work and that's it. It's all the parts of this that you have to specifically define in order to process. And this is the first place we go wrong. We don't know how to dump what the problems really are within the issue that's bothering or triggering us. So let's say, for example, you might say, okay, I got fired from my job. Okay, what are all the issues that are bothering me? What are all the specific pieces of this that are causing me pain? Number one, loss of a feeling of security. Number two, now I feel not good enough. Number three, maybe I feel embarrassed or ashamed of telling my family that this happened. Number four, I need to find a new job, but I don't know where to start, or I got to figure that out, and it feels like pressure. Number 5, I have to figure out, how long can I go on without a job? I have to organize my finances and start knowing, like, okay, what does this mean really in terms of my finances? And again, that's sort of security piece. And once you've identified, so you would list out everything. Okay, here's the problem, I got fired from the job. Here are all the specific pieces of this that caused me pain. You list them, dump them on a piece of paper. Super friggin' helpful. If you're not doing this, you don't even know what you're really suffering about, which means that suffering you're feeling on a subtle level is just like super enabled to stay alive. So once you've done this, then you want to do the next 2 things. Number 1, you want to question the validity of everything you put down, because sometimes we'll give meaning to things that's not actually really accurate about the situation. And to really see if this is or isn't accurate, if we're on the fence, we want to look for proof of how this might not be accurate. And you want to find like 5 or 6 really key pieces of proof. So let's say, for example, out of that list from getting fired from your job, you're like, okay, I'm not good enough. I'm not going to be able to ever work again for a future company. I'm not good at what I do. Let's say you give this meaning to things, as we tend to give like more emotionally charged meaning to things during more challenging times. Sit down and actually question it. Okay, is it possible that I am good enough and that this wasn't about that? Okay, so what's some proof of how I might be good enough? Well, I got this award. I had this experience, I had this validation from my coworkers. In fact, I wasn't actually fired because I'm not good enough. I was fired because the company was sort of collapsing and I had to lay off 30 people. Like, write down these things so that if you're suffering over something that's just totally unnecessary and not even valid, you can at least alleviate that first, and it gets rid of more emotional charges before you proceed to the next step. Okay, so far we've got define what the problem is, dump out all the small issues within that are the specific reasons you're suffering about that problem, and then question anything in there that might not be 100% valid. Okay, so let's say you're like, okay, I need a new job. Is that valid? Well, yeah, for me in my situation at this time, it might be valid. I really need a new job because I don't want to be homeless and whatever. So now if you're sitting there going, oh, I'm fired and now I'm going to be homeless, you would question that because chances are that wouldn't really be what happened unless you were, unemployed for years and years or months and months. So you see what I mean, right? Like, it's valid for you to want a new job, but don't make it mean things that are much greater than it is that will then cause you more unnecessary suffering. Okay, so number 1, dump. Number 2, define all the specifics within that problem. Number 3, question anything you're not 100% sure about. And then number 4, for the things that are completely valid, put strategies together. Okay, so like beside each bullet point, for example, loss of security or need a new job, beside that, put a column that says strategies. And in that space, define the core strategies. So what do I need to do, right, to find a new job? How will I do this and when will I start? Okay, so just in that column with strategies, just define what the strategy is, how you're going to execute this strategy, and when you're going to start execution. And what you're going to do is, from this event that seemingly shakes everything, you've now defined it into all these core parts of it that cause you pain or stress. And as you start checking off each aspect of this list, releasing the things that are just the stories and meaning you gave to it that are, just wildly unserving, like making this mean about yourself, you're a failure for life and you're never going to be good enough for another job, and then going, okay, you know what, that's not true, and here's some proof of otherwise. As you work through those pieces, you'll get a great amount of relief. And then as you work through the next pieces, right, where you have strategies, you'll start bringing some of that security back to yourself. You'll start having this action plan. You'll start being able to clearly see what you need to do, and you'll move through this challenge or issue much more quickly that way. And one other last piece you can add to this if you want to is just to look in terms of further reflection and deeper insight into yourself. Like, what might this be here to show me about myself? Maybe I was sitting in the wrong job and I could have been absolutely invaluable somewhere else, but because I wasn't stretching myself and growing and moving in a direction that was truly deeply inspiring me, I settled a little bit and I put myself at risk. And maybe what this is showing me about myself is that I should move in a direction that I'm more passionate about going forward, or, you name it. But look for the lesson in there, what this is showing you, or, what this is helping you to see about yourself that might have otherwise been outside of your awareness. And I would take that, because I think there's always an important lesson in all the challenges that happen to us, and it's a nice space to just further dig into yourself there and develop some deeper awareness and just out of the situation itself. And there's something called post-traumatic growth. And I'll make a separate video on this, but one of the key points there is that people who are going through challenges or trauma, we can grow through those things by deeply reflecting on what they're here for and allowing ourselves to take something positive out of this, which can be something that some people just happen to do because they're programming unintentionally, but we can create post-traumatic growth by intentionally doing this. And again, there's other parts to this, but that's a good place to start. So in review, do not just consistently, perpetually distract, avoid, disown, and abandon yourself emotionally. It's not good. It doesn't feel good. It wouldn't feel good if anybody else did that to us. But again, we didn't really get these tools necessarily as kids, so these aren't patterns of how we tend to be conditioned or socialized to deal with things. So what you can do instead is define the problem, dump all the specific pieces of why that problem is getting to you on paper, define all those specifics, question anything that's not completely valid or true, find proof of otherwise for those pieces. It really helps to flesh that out. And then create a strategy for anything that is true. And that strategy should specifically have what to do, how to do it, when you're going to start, and then look for any lesson that's in here just as a point of self-reflection. And again, this isn't the most in-depth way, but this is something you can do quickly that will bring you relief very, very quickly as well. Thank you so much for watching, and if you are receiving lots of value from our videos, please like them, share them, subscribe to our channel, and please visit www.personaldevelopmentschool.com. Thank you so much.